You know those times when you're considering cooking, but as soon as you really start to think about it, you feel overwhelmed and you don't know where to start? Overwhelm is usually the reason that we don't start a project. If we don't see a clear roadmap or have a clear image in our mind beforehand, we just don't know what to do, so we just don't do it at all. It's very paralyzing, and so we don't start. So I've designed this specific dish today and this lesson to be very straight ahead, using a very few number of ingredients and not very much cooking equipment at all. Most importantly, it'll be fast. We'll be done in about 20 minutes, and you'll have very delicious, healthy, pretty authentic tasting street tacos by the time we're done here. Let me start by showing you the equipment that we'll need. So the first thing is a highly recommended piece of equipment, an immersion blender here. And that's gonna be used to make our salsa. Now you don't need it, and if you do have one, you'll use this to blend the salsa in here. If you have a countertop blender, that's fine. And if you don't have any sort of blender, that's also fine too. We can actually just chop things up by hand a little bit and make more of a rough, rustic kind of salsa. Next is gonna be some sort of grater. They come in a few different shapes here. A very fine grater or a garlic press would work here. We're gonna use this for our garlic today. We're gonna be roasting some things, so I'm using foil to line this very sheet pan here. And we're gonna use some scissors to open up our tofu package. Measuring spoons to measure a few things. A chef's knife and a cutting board is gonna be very helpful. And a can opener to open our canned tomatoes. Very simple. We'll need a few prep bowls here. These could be any size or shape. This top one I'm gonna use as a compost or trash bin, so I don't have to keep opening up my trash can throughout the process. And then these other two I'll use to collect things that we've prepared so we can put everything together at the end quickly. We're gonna use a saute pan of any sort here. Non-stick is preferable, but you could get away with stainless or cast iron. This is to warm up our tortillas. And finally, we'll use a clean kitchen towel to hold those warm tortillas to keep them warm and flexible as we build out our tacos at the end. Our ingredients are very few and simple. Our protein of the day is tofu. We're using a super firm, sometimes it'll say extra firm on there. This has already been pressed and most liquid is already extracted from here. There's a small amount in the package, but this is already a pretty meaty and dried out product, which is a great starting point for making some sort of meat-like taco. Of course, corn tortillas, any brand, any size will do just fine here. A white onion, 1 lime, some garlic, cilantro, canned tomatoes, and we went with fire roasted here. These ones happen to have some chilies in here, so it's just gonna make our flavorful salsa more flavorful, and it's gonna be super easy as we go. If you wish, you can add some cayenne pepper to your salsa to make it a little more spicy. And one of the most important ingredients here is any sort of Mexican ground chili. This is a California chili, mild but very, very flavorful. This is different than what you can buy in the store that says chili powder. That's a blend of different spices that often includes cumin and other things that make it taste suitable for like a pot of chili. This is gonna be one specific pepper ground up and designed to make our food taste authentically Mexican. So this is an important one here, but you can use any kind that you can find in your grocery store. I got this one at Safeway, so it's pretty accessible. Okay, the very first thing we're gonna do is make our marinade for our tofu. It's gonna be extremely simple. 2 main ingredients plus oil and salt. So we're gonna start with some garlic here. So I have my garlic and I'm going to peel off the outer skin here until I can start to access a clove of garlic. And I'm just pushing from the top with my thumb downward, peeling away those layers of papery skin. Now I can pluck off 1 clove here and I'm gonna do a second one as well. You can make this as garlicky as you want. This will be getting cooked in our marinade once it's in the oven, so don't worry about having too much raw garlic flavor. You can add a lot if you want. And I'm gonna use a little trick here where I twist the garlic clove side to side using my thumb and pointer on both hands. And as it's cracking, it's actually releasing the skin away from the garlic clove here, and now it's very easy to peel off. Here's where our grater comes into place. I'm just gonna grate the garlic here. And garlic is very sticky, so it's gonna stick to the back of this here. I'm just gonna keep going, and it can collect there until the very end, it's fine. Okay, this is all here. Now I just can tap it, and now the garlic is down in there. Next, we'll add some of our California chili in here. I'm gonna open the package a little bit. Actually all the way here. And I'm gonna start by adding 2 teaspoons of this chili powder in here. This marinade that we're making here is gonna cover the entire block of tofu, so I'm making everything proportional to that. I want a decent amount of everything so we can coat it all and make it very flavorful. I'm going to use a teaspoon of my kosher salt here. And once again, if you have that finer salt, like a table salt or sea salt, go ahead and use half as much. And you can taste it as you go. So we'll find out if that tastes right to you by the end. And I'm just going to drizzle in some neutral oil here. Neutral meaning it's not a flavorful olive oil. This one happens to be vegetable oil here, so it's just doing the job of making this all come together and helping the tofu cook in the oven. We don't actually need it to be imparting flavor from a deep, like, olivey perspective. Okay, I'm just stirring it up here a little bit. And this is already going to make the oil start to turn red, which is very beautiful and very appealing here. I would not recommend tasting it now because of the raw garlic. That's very overwhelming to my palate. Some people can handle it, so if you want to taste it for salt and see if it tastes very salty, that's a good thing to do now. So we do want this to be overly salty because it's going to get diluted when it goes into that whole block of tofu. There's a lot of water in the tofu, and there's no salt in the tofu whatsoever. So this should be overly salty by itself, and then by the time it gets applied to the tofu, it'll kind of mellow out and really just end up in the right spot. If we make it perfectly salty now, it'll be undersalted later. Once the tofu is cooked, then you can taste it and adjust for seasoning. So that's what I'm going to do today. So I'm just going to start with this and be content for now. I'll set it aside. Okay, I'm going to open up my tofu package and start to drain out the little bit of water that is in there. And you can do this over the sink if you wish. I'm just doing it over the bowl for the camera here. And like I said, there's not much water contained in here. I'm going to squeeze it, and you can see barely anything's coming out. I could pat this dry with a paper towel if I wanted, but it's so low, it's just surface moisture, and it's going to get cooked out immediately once we go into the oven. So I'm not even going to take that extra step here. I'm just going to move right ahead. And to save you time and dishes, let's break our tofu directly in here. So this is a very cool technique that I've developed where you rip the tofu into rough pieces. I did not invent this part, but the cooking is kind of unique. So we'll just start to rip them into rough, little bite-sized kind of meat-like pieces that we'd want to see in our little taco at the end here. So think about the final product. Anytime you're cooking, that looks like a great bite that could fit into a taco. Whereas that seems quite a bit too big for my taco. So I'll just break it down into a little bit smaller pieces here. And we'll do that real quickly and break up the whole block of tofu. Does not have to be super precise, so you can start to just pluck at it and break those into small pieces. Some little bits are actually really tasty too, so that's okay if it crumbles a bit. Okay, now I can toss it together with my hands, or I forgot to mention, but we could use a spatula here. That looks awesome, and it smells really good too. You're smelling that too by now. It smells really good. And I love that red color. It's just so enticing. I really just want to get in there and eat that as soon as possible. From experience, I know that I want to see a little bit more shininess from the oil. It looks like the tofu has absorbed a little bit of it, and so I'm just going to drizzle in a little bit more oil. And that's going to help it cook up a little more crispy and more meat-like. Okay, I'll set that aside for one moment. I have the pan and foil ready to go here. The foil by itself is going to slip around on the pan, so here's a little trick you can use. Just take a little bit of water on your hand from the sink and just rub that over the surface of the pan. And then when you put your foil on, it's going to immediately cling to it from the surface tension of the water. Check that out. Now it's not going anywhere. We're going to transfer our prepped tofu right onto here and spread it out into kind of an even layer. And I really like seeing this residual oil here. That's the right sign that we have enough here. And man, that really smells good already. Okay, so to prepare your oven, put the rack on the highest position that it can go to, and we're gonna use the broiler to cook this. This is essentially an upside down barbecue. It uses the exact same kind of heat that a grill does. And it's actually radiant heat where the heat waves are intensely shining down on here and actually touching and vibrating the surface of the food, and that's what's doing the cooking. So we don't have to preheat the oven for any longer than the broiler takes to just get going. So turn your broiler to the highest setting it can go, have that rack in the highest position, and you can actually throw this in as soon as possible because the broiler will heat up, and as soon as it's hot, it'll start cooking our food, and we just want it to go fast, right? So let's go ahead and do that right now. I'm gonna turn mine to high. And mine isn't even fully preheated. I'm just gonna throw this in and let it start to cook because there's no downside to it. We don't need it to be preheated at all. We're just gonna let it start to rip and get really hot and cook as soon as possible. When I'm showing you how to use the broiler, I will never give you a specific amount of time because more than any other part of your oven, the broiler varies wildly. So yours might be super strong and go really fast, or it might be a little bit slower and take double or triple the time of someone else's. So I'm putting mine in there and I'm gonna show you the visual cues to look for. We basically want this to be cooked very well and have lots of charred bits on every little edge and kind of squared off piece of the tofu to have nice blackened charred bits. And that's gonna be very tasty and very visually appealing. Next up is our quick salsa. This could not be easier. I have this fire roasted salsa style canned tomatoes from Safeway once again. Happens to have some chilies and onions mixed in. So like I said, that's just gonna make this salsa more flavorful with less effort. You could actually just get fire roasted tomatoes with nothing added to it, and it's gonna taste just as good, maybe a little bit less flavorful or complex, but still very delicious. Mine doesn't even need a can opener, so here I go. And this already looks very salsa-like. It's almost ready to go. It's not seasoned with any salt, but we're gonna add a few things to make it taste even better. I'm gonna peel a few more garlic cloves here. And I'm gonna put in 3 to this salsa here. So once again, little twist until I hear that cracking sound. And then the skin peels off pretty easily. And this is a small detail, but I do like to hit it. This is kind of a woody, tough part that connected to the head of garlic. I'm just gonna trim those very bottom pieces of each of these off. Throw those away. And now I'm just gonna throw these in there whole. I'm gonna start with a teaspoon of this coarse salt here, and I'll taste it and see what I think later. I'm gonna add a teaspoon of the chili powder as well. And if you like spice and want more of it, Cayenne pepper is a very cool shortcut just to add plain straight heat. So I'm gonna add a little bit to mine. I don't want it terribly spicy today. Cayenne can be pretty strong, so I'm gonna start with a 1/4 teaspoon, and that's gonna be a decent amount of heat added. And at this point, this is all I have to do. I just have to go ahead and blend it now. My immersion blender has a low and a high setting. I'm just gonna use the high here today. I'm gonna push it all the way to the bottom so I don't get stuff splattering up and out, and I'm just gonna go here. I can start to lift it up and down a little bit. And that's it. I'm gonna taste it and see if I like it, and then I'll go from there. Wow, that's delicious. There's a little bit of heat there, and I got some garlickiness. Obviously, the roasted tomatoes bring their own flavor, and then the onions and chilies that are in there are also kind of coming through a bit. For me, this is very nice. You could make yours a little more tart. You could add some lime juice to it if you want. You could add more salt. You could add more garlic if you want. This is completely up to you. So this is the part that's very fun about learning some chef skills here, just tasting it and then adjusting it to make it what you want it to be. I'm pretty satisfied with this. One thing I might do is add a little bit of water because tomatoes have pectin in them, and pectin is the same thing that makes jams and jellies bind and get thickened. And so when you start to blend up the tomatoes, the pectin gets activated and it's gonna, as it sits, get a little bit thicker and clumpier. I just want it to be a little bit thinner for the tacos. So I'll just add a splash of water, blend it up, and I'm done. One final blend. I'll taste it again for the flavor once the water has diluted some of the flavors. That's quite nice. It is a little more diluted now, so I might want to add a little bit of salt to it. This is an unmeasured amount of salt. I'm just guessing so that I can see if it tastes good to me or not. Taste again. That is absolutely delicious. So happy with this. I'm done. I'm gonna set it aside. Okay, here's how my tofu is looking so far after about 3 or 4 minutes. It's not there yet by any means. It's still kind of jiggly, kind of pale, but I do smell really good cooked smells starting, so I'm just gonna put this straight back in there and let it keep going. Meanwhile, let's prep our garnishes. I'm gonna go in the order of least messy to most messy so I don't have to clean up my cutting board as frequently. So for this lime here, you could just cut it however you want, but here's a very cool, kind of elevated way to go about it. I'm gonna trim off the very ends here so I can start to see in the middle of the lime and just take that kind of skin layer off of each end. Then I can set it flat on one side, and this will allow me to see the exact center point of the lime. I'll cut right in there. And I'm gonna turn it to its side and cut it into quarters using that center point as my guide again. Now I have quarters, and yeah, these would be fine to serve, but I'm gonna take it to the next level and just trim off that little bit of white that's in the middle there. This lime happens to not have very much, so I'm just gonna cut out the teensiest bit here. And when you're done with that stage, you'll go ahead and just cut these in half so the lime will go into eighths. You'll have 8 pieces of very beautiful, perfectly manicured lime wedges. Okay, just take a moment to finish that up, and when you're done, we'll move on. I'll just set these aside. Give my cutting board a quick wipe here. Okay, next up is my onion. You'll notice I'll do kind of a similar technique to the lime. I'm gonna cut off the very top. And on this part, just that very tiny bit of the root end here, and I'll show you why in a minute. This will allow me to see through the very center and cut right in half. And I mostly did that little cut in the bottom so that when I come to peeling the onion, it's really easy. I'm gonna take the full first layer of the onion along with its skin and just pull all the way across here. And it's gonna come easily from the top and easily from the bottom. I'll do it with my other half here as well. Reaching under and grabbing that first layer of the onion along with the skin. Oh, let's see, here it is. And there we go. Now this is going to be really important to have your knife fairly sharp. If it's not, this will be a little bit harder, but still doable. I'll show you how to sharpen your knife another time, but for now, let's just get in here and see if we can make a little small incision into the onion, and I'll show you what we're going to do. We're going to make lengthwise cuts that go next to each other, but never cut all the way through the bottom of the onion. So everything's still intact here, nothing's falling apart. And I'm going to keep going at that interval here. I'm using my hand, fingers curved, and knuckles out here, and I'm using my knuckle as a little bit of a guide. And the motion I'm making with my knife is mostly coming from my wrist, pushing downward. So you'll watch here, my wrist is kind of staying put, and I'm also moving the knife backwards so that I don't cut to that bottom there, because if I want push straight down, it cuts to the onion. Coming backwards a little bit, coming all the way through. And you can go at wider intervals or go a little slower. Okay, I'm almost there. I'm keeping my hands way out of the way here. I could even have my hand off the onion mostly. And there's that. And you could just come across here and start cutting, and you'll have pretty nice pieces of onion, but there will be some longish pieces here. So if you wanted to take one extra step, you can find the middlemost piece here and cut your onion in half like that. So now you've actually separated it out. The next thing you're gonna do is turn your onion piece to the side like that. So if you have your two pieces, they come apart from each other, and then you're gonna push them both down toward the center of each other. Now all the cuts are actually going sideways, which is really great. We're just gonna bring these back together, and they'll be aligned and kind of forming its original shape. And then you can come across and do the same thing again. Okay, if your knife is not that sharp, you'll feel it right now, and the whole onion will be falling apart a decent amount. So if that's happening, don't worry too much. You can just kind of run your knife over the whole thing and really just go crazy at the end. It doesn't have to be perfect or precise. This is just kind of a fun way to get them looking very nice. So I'm gonna push aside stuff that's fallen away. Regather everything as much as possible. And now, using just kind of a gentle back and forth and a little bit of a down push, start to saw through. And now we have really nice looking, more cube-like little pieces. And I'll keep doing that all the way across here. Notice I'm not pushing down very much. I'm just sawing and gently letting the knife go downward as it happens. Okay, so that beeping is my oven finally saying that the broiler is all the way the hottest it's gonna get. That took quite a while, but we'll see how much the tofu is cooked already. Let's check it out. Okay, that's looking almost done. And the broiler just said it was heated all the way. So this is a great lesson in throwing something in your oven and not having to wait for it to heat up all the way under the broiler specifically. That's what I'm shooting for here. These little crispy blackened pieces on the corners. They look really good, and the outer texture is very kind of crunchy and firm. I want everything to get a little bit more like that, so we're gonna keep going. And meanwhile, I'll just finish up this onion here. Very gentle downward strokes. And toward the bottom, it's all kind of funky, and I'm just gonna throw this away and not risk my fingers getting cut. So if you have pieces like this, or your whole onion fell apart and it looks like an absolute nightmare, and you're like, oh my gosh, this is terrible, just take this all together, start going over it like this. Just mince it up, doesn't matter. This is more than enough for this amount of tacos we're making today, so I'm gonna show you a very cool trick of how to set it up in the bowl to make a really cool serving at the end. I'm gonna pick it up here and kind of just put it on one side of the bowl here. I'm gonna favor just one side and really kind of keep it into half of the bowl. It doesn't have to be perfect, but just kind of pushing it to one side of the bowl here. Okay, that's good for now. And finally, the cilantro. And a lot of times in the grocery store, your cilantro is going to be stored not the best way. I was kind of disappointed when I found this, that it had been sitting in some water and there was a lot of dead pieces. So we'll pull it apart and just take all the bad stuff out right away. So let's just do that. We'll kind of widen it out so we can see everything. Any black, dead, gross stuff, just toss it. And you can be a little aggressive here just so it goes fast. You don't have to be so precious about it. But anything that looks bad, just get rid of it. Yeah, this is iffy, but I'm not going to be precious about it. Just toss it. Oh yeah, definitely not good. Okay, this looks pretty good overall. I found one more piece here. Okay, I'm happy with that for now. Okay, I don't need all of this, so I'm just gonna take a small portion that I'm gonna use tonight, and if I chop it up, it's gonna start to go bad much faster. So I'll set this aside and just work with this for now. All I did was rinse out the bowl that we used for our marinade for the tofu. And I'm gonna put this straight into the same bowl here. I'm gonna fill it all the way with cool tap water and swish it around, and then I'll come back. And I'm taking a moment to check my tofu, and boy, does that look delicious. I think I'm happy with that. I'm gonna leave it be. You can cook it to your desired doneness, but this looks awesome to me. I'm gonna let it cool a tiny bit, taste it, and then we can see if we need to sprinkle any salt or anything else on it. Setting it aside for now. Okay, here's my cilantro, and then here's the towel that we're gonna use for the tortillas in a minute, but for now, I'm gonna pull the cilantro out and lift it up out of the water. All the dirt and gross stuff is gonna fall and sink to the bottom of the bowl, so I'm just pulling this out as the debris remains in the bowl here. I'm gonna pull this out and get rid of the water. And this could kind of be sufficient to pat it dry. You're also welcome to go outside, put this into a bundle and give it a little bit of a swing. And as you swing it around, the water will just fly out of it. So I might go do that real quick. Okay, after swinging it around a bunch, it's coming out looking, yeah, more dry. So now I'm just gonna take this exact bundle just how it is. See if I can bundle it even a teeny bit smaller, and then I can come across it and not have to cut so much surface area. I can just bundle it up tight. And then start to, oh yeah, let's see here. And then start to just use kind of a back and forth sawing motion in very small intervals. And this will get a very nice mince with a pretty easy, low amount of effort here. And it's okay if yours is gonna go slower. Just really be careful of your fingers. I'm starting to inch them back each time that I'm moving. You can see my fingers are creeping backwards. I'll regather my stuff. And then I'm just gonna keep my fingers moving backwards. And notice my knife is the one moving. The pile is staying put. So I started here with my knife, worked it all the way down and ended here. If you see big chunks, you can just come across it one or two more times. But guess what? That's sufficient. That's gonna make a very nice taco there. And here's our bowl with our onions in it. And now I'm gonna put the cilantro on the opposite side. And guess what? When we make our tacos, we can reach right in the middle and get both onion and cilantro all at the same time. And I just set up my induction burner here just so I can show you guys on camera how quick it is to cook these tortillas. So I'm just gonna turn it on and put it on kind of medium-high heat here. And unlike being with the broiler here, it's actually important to get this preheated a little bit. It's gonna help the tortillas not stick, because when it's nice and hot, as soon as the tortilla touches the pan, it'll kind of form a cooked layer, and that'll make it so that it can slide and pull away from the pan. Otherwise, a colder pan that's in the process of warming up will wanna kind of bond the tortilla to it, pull it down and have it stick, and then you have a tortilla that's ripping and sticking. So we'll let this get preheated just for a moment here, and then we'll throw in our tortillas. I'm gonna make sure my cilantro towel is now becoming my tortilla towel, and it's here ready to go. I'm gonna fold it like this, and then as the tortillas go in, I'll go ahead and just fold it in half. This can just sit on a dinner plate, and this can be my easy setup for my tortillas here. Okay, so I have it on a plate now. I'm ready to go. I filled my cilantro bowl with water again, and now I'm just gonna dip in the tortilla real quick. This might be completely shocking, and I'm gonna throw it in the pan. What this is gonna do is help steam and rehydrate the tortilla very well. Once it's dried out on the surface like it is right here, I can start to see if it's movable, if it has unstuck from the pan. Oh great, that's pretty good. And we can give it a little bit of a rotation so that it's not having only one part getting cooked. Okay, time to do a little flip. You can see a little bit of stickage right here. That's okay, but most of the heated pan is going to help us avoid that. Okay, these are soft, pliable, steamy, and ready to be eaten. I'm gonna pull these out here with my confident chef fingers. You can also just grab your spatula and pull them out. And I'm just gonna cook these two today, and I'm gonna show you how to make 2 tacos right now. So let's go ahead and just cover this up for a moment. Okay, I'm gonna use this very same plate that we used here. I'm gonna pull the tortillas out, put them on the plate, and set them up so that they can both be accessible here. So just making a little thing in the middle there like that. And now I can fill them both with all of our fillings. Now's a great time to taste this and see if you like how it tastes. Okay, that's really, really good. I like it a lot. I might want the smallest amount more salt. So I can grab my salt here and just do a little sprinkle over the top. Okay, let's get a little bit of this tofu here that we cooked up asada style. That looks really good. Really nice looking colors. This is not soft, mushy tofu. This is very appealing. I'm excited to try it. Okay. Okay, we'll set our tofu aside. Something that I've learned from going to taquerias is seeing them put the salsa actually before the cilantro and onions. So let's go ahead and put that down a little bit. And I do like this kind of thin texture because it's able to kind of drape over all of the filling here and really kind of get into all the nooks and crannies and not just become one giant pile of thick salsa sitting on top of everything. So that looks really nice to me. Then we'll reach right in the middle of our bowl and grab some onions, some cilantro. Sprinkle those on. I can get a little more onion if I want to balance it out. That's it. And you can serve it with a couple of lime wedges right on the plate there. And then each person, if it's just you, go ahead. But if you have anybody you're cooking for, you can go ahead and have them squeeze their limes on there to taste. I do like quite a bit here. I'm going to squeeze that dry. And now I'm just going to go ahead and taste it. Let's go. Yeah, that'll work. That's delicious. We have something that tastes very authentic, really nice. The texture of the tofu is really nice, very chewy. I hope that you're experiencing that right now as well. A nice bite to it, and the flavors are awesome. If you feel like your flavors are not where you want them to be, it's not too late even right now. You could sprinkle a little salt into your taco, more lime juice. You could even go back and re-blend your salsa with more garlic or more spice, whatever you feel like you want to do for yours. It's not too late to make it taste even better. I'm very happy with mine. I'm gonna go ahead and finish this off. Well, I hope you really enjoyed this lesson on tofu asada tacos. I really enjoyed cooking with you, and I look forward to making more simple meals like this together with you. See you soon.